Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Work at Home Rockstar Podcast. Very excited for today's episode. We have a leading success coach who works with prominent creative executives and entrepreneurs in the arts and entertainment industry. And what she does is she specializes in helping them thrive at the intersection of creativity and impact. Very excited to be rocking out today with Sarah Gibbons. Hey, Sarah, you ready to rock?
I am ready. Let's do this.
Perfect. So always start off on a good note. So tell me a story of success in your business or your life that we can be inspired by.
I think one of the things that stands out to me the most is I had a career in online advertising that was fantastic. I got into advertising quite early on before it was very much the Wild West, and the hours were good. The money was good. I loved the people, but it didn't fulfill my heart. And I always had a craving to make an impact. And so fast forward to, I had 3 very young boys at the time that were all 3 and under, and decided to go back to grad school and really follow the good feeling of what it's like to do work that has meaning. And so I ended up getting my master's in spiritual psychology, and long story short, launched my coaching practice. And not only did I have the boys, but I was also managing a sales team at the time. And it's one of those moments where I look back and I'm like, I don't know how my marriage survived. I don't know how my kids, managed, although I have an amazing partner. But it is one of those moments where I'm just really proud of the leadership that I led from, that allowed me to now fast forward, 10 years later, I run a business that has flexibility, that makes more than I was making, and more importantly, that really fulfills my heart. I get to work with people all day long that are wildly creative, but also, like myself, want to make an impact. So I think at the end of the day, that's what I'm most proud of.
Yeah, absolutely. I get that for sure. I mean, we have to work every day to make ends meet. So why not do something that really fulfills you, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think intellectually we all know that, but I'm blown away at how many people I will come in contact with who are just sticking out the grind. And for some people that works. For me, that just wasn't enough. And I always knew that in order for me to feel like I was in my truth and integrity, I needed to be able to put my head on my pillow at night and know that how I spent my time during the day mattered and had meaning. So yeah, but I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people are sort of turned off by the unknown and not knowing exactly what to do. And you know what? That's what this podcast is for. It's to help you sort of navigate those things, right?
100%. And I think that's why what you're offering is so valuable, because you're absolutely right. People get stuck, and before they can, take those steps, they think they've got to have it all figured out. And then that's what gets in the way of them making any change.
Other thing that people might get, turned off by is some of those bad notes that you might hit along the way, because, on your road to success, there are, I'm just trying to normalize it, just because, we all hit bad notes from time to time, and, there's nothing wrong with that. So I'm wondering, can you share with us, something that just didn't go according to plan, and how you recovered from that, or how we can avoid that?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I could talk all day about that question, Tim. I mean, I think the obvious one that comes to mind, and I don't talk about this very often, but really early on in my business. So I'm an executive coach, success coach. I work with people, in groups and also one-on-one. But one of the big themes 10 years ago, and it still very much is to have a membership program. And so I created a membership program. I spent hours writing the content. I had this beautiful site. I figured out the back end. I spent money, and I had 2 people join. And the reason I had 2 people join is that I didn't have a community. I didn't have any clients. And what I noticed looking back was that I was trying to take a shortcut. And I think what I noticed, and I'm guilty of this, is that when we become entrepreneurs and start to build our business, it is so, it's really easy to start comparing yourself to others, and you want to take a shortcut, but the reality is there really aren't any shortcuts. And so a membership program very much could make sense now in my business, now that I have a community of people and I've been building that over time. But it certainly is a very hard thing to create when you are 6 months into your business and don't have really any clients. And so I think what I really caught from that was, there really aren't any shortcuts. There's lots of lots of people out there selling you on to, like, if you just do this, then you're going to make this, and you're going to be able to cut that out, and to each their own. But I'm just the tried and true, one step in front of the other, and build the foundation of the house, and then you can build a strong house. So I learned a lot.
Yeah, I totally understand with that. I mean, you might go out there and you see what someone else is doing and you think, hey, I want to do that, right? But, you've got to sort of take a step back and realize that there have been many steps for them to get from where they started to where they are now, right?
Yes, that's right.
So now, I mean, speaking of which, in order to, really compress some of that time and get the best out of it, sometimes it's best to maybe find a mentor or a mastermind or something like that, someone to learn from. So I'm wondering, is that something that you do? Do you hire coaches or?
So I can get on my soapbox about this all day long, but I firmly believe, particularly if you are in the coaching business, which the coaching business has become this $1 billion business, which is amazing. And the downside is that the bar is so low to get in. So one of the things that I feel that makes really phenomenal coaches is people who are walking their talk. So for me personally, I have always from day one invested in coaching, and that's different kinds of coaching. There's the coaching of your skills, right? And then there's the coaching of running the business. And whether that looks like working with someone one-on-one, or that looks like being a part of mastermind, I have done a gamut of things. I currently work with a coach one-on-one, and it is a big investment of resources, time, energy, and money. And then at the same time, I'm part of a mastermind that I also am on the leadership team with, and I help run. And so for me, I believe it's really hard in my business to take somebody somewhere if you've never been there yourself. And so, I would say to anybody who's looking to do personal and professional development work, and if you're looking to hire someone, one of the questions I always say, get curious about, are they investing in themselves? And if they aren't, that would be a red flag for me.
Love it. Love it. I've used that same thing when I'm hiring somebody, find out if they actually have a coach, because if they don't, then they're probably not taking things seriously.
Yeah. Like, how can you ask someone to spend X amount of time and money if you yourself aren't willing to do that? I mean, I just committed to a coach last week who I've done a lot of work with. And, I still get a pit in my stomach when I'm agreeing to the terms, but by doing that, I'm expanding my range of sitting in the discomfort. So then when I'm enrolling people and supporting people into investing in themselves, I know how to hold people and hold that space because I've been in it. I can literally, I'm like, I know, I get it. So I think it gives me the ability to walk my talk. And I think it's really noticeable with coaches. So the short answer, yes. And then also, there's all kinds of different mentors. One of the things that I learned early on is I really like to have mentors of all different ages. I have someone who's younger than me who I spend time with, who's just a real creatively inspiring person. And I just get so much out of my conversations with her. And then I have someone who's much older. And so I think it's important to look at mentorship. Certainly, it doesn't have to be necessarily within your industry as well, but also just considering different ages and experiences. There's so much value in that, I find. So I would say, definitely don't limit yourself if you're building your business and you're looking for support.
Yeah. You know what? There's something else I wanted to address too. And what you mentioned before about having different coaches for different aspects of your business, that is absolutely crucial. Because I think that's a thing. I think a lot of times you might look for a coach, but not have an actual reason why. Like, because I find you're right. I mean, you might want to get a coach to help you get better at it is that you do, the thing that you do, because you might want to get a coach that's going to help you with business strategy. But you also might want to have just like an accountability coach, which I'm going to say is probably one of the most important ones out there, right?
Yes. Yeah. So, like for me, I focus on people's leadership. And so everything comes back to leadership. And I really define leadership as who you are being in this moment, because who you're being informs how you do things. Now, if I'm working with you, Tim, and you tell me that there's a skill that you want to have that you don't know, then you and I will work together and say, hey, maybe you go take a course this weekend and that will identify that person. Or maybe you want to improve your public speaking. So I have my hand in that, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm the expert in teaching you something that I don't know. And so, I think, it's really, really important to, like you said, begin to get clarity around the results that you want to create. And then from there, start with the results in mind and then work backwards to figure out, all right, who could I invest in to help me close that gap and get there?
Yeah, absolutely. So what would you say, let's just say that I'm just, getting started on my business journey. What would you say would be the first type of coach you'd want to look for?
Well, I'm a little biased, obviously, but I would say someone like myself who's focusing on leadership. The reason for that is, and I just mentioned this, but who you be informs what you do. So when you start to get clear on your way of being, so everything from your energy, how you use your energy, your mindset, and then start to apply that and create a vision and strategy, then you've got the tools to then create the pieces. I think what happens is I notice entrepreneurs right out of their gate, they want to hire a business strategist, and then they can't figure out why they're stressed all day and they're not having the experience they want. And that's why it goes back to, all right, let's look at your leadership. Who are you being as you bring that into working with a business strategist? And so what I do is I very much start to look at that in your core and start to identify what is the experience you want to have. What are the ways that you get in your own way and don't allow yourself to have the experience you want to have? The one thing I have identified, and particularly I work with really driven people in the world and creative people. And one of the things that has become really important to my people and myself is that it isn't just about the end result. My people care equally as much, if not more, about the experience itself. And if that matters to you, then getting really clear on your leadership and refining that in a way so that you know how to show up and relate to the things that you're trying to learn or trying to accomplish, then it becomes much more easier to do. And so while I'm looking at leadership with someone who's new, we're marrying that then with very practical steps, but the experience they have is so much more in alignment with what they dream about, rather than just defaulting to this grind and hustle, which is so much of what I hear entrepreneurs talking about. And that is, it's not that I haven't had moments where I certainly am working longer hours or hustling, but I would say, and I can honestly say this, my day is enjoyable. And my day ends in the early afternoon so that I can go pick up all my boys from school. I have 3 boys, and then spend the afternoons with them. And then I'm not getting online at night and working. I've set my day up in a way that it doesn't work that way. So I would strongly encourage you to look for a coach that focuses on leadership first and foremost. Get your foundation built and then look for specifics.
Love it. Okay, so let's talk about tools then. So now, in a band, you pick an instrument, you go for it. But in a business, I mean, we're living in a great age with lots of great tools out there to help you get success. So tell me some of the tools that you use.
Yeah, I really love this question. So I'll tell you the couple that immediately come to mind. So first and foremost, having a space that you work in that feels good. I think is really, really important. It doesn't need to be fancy, but there's a sense of organization that comes from that that can really support you. Also, structure. So I think this is one of the things that really gets in the way of a lot of entrepreneurs, is that they don't know how to structure their time. And so having a sense of how you build your day, so whether that's starting with the one thing you want to make movement on first in the morning, calendaring things throughout the day, building in time for your self-care, for exercise, whatever it is that you're doing to nourish your soul, but really having a sense of structure. I believe that and I think this is what gets in the way of people really seeing their goals come to fruition, is that they have no structure. They have these amazing ideas, but they feel like they're going to be limited if they have structure. And I actually feel the opposite. It doesn't mean that you have to stick to the structure and everything's going to go according to plan, but it does mean that there's a level of planning that's essential. And by having that, then you can start to build from there. The two other things that I do daily is I set an intention in the morning. So I choose a word that I want to lead from. This morning, my word was trust. I want to trust myself. I want to trust what I have to say matters. And so I actually text that word to a girlfriend of mine who's a coach up in Canada. We've been doing this, for over a year now. But for many, many years, I've been setting a word that I want to choose to lead from. And it just serves as a North Star. I have all my clients doing it, but it gives you a sense of direction and a place to come from. And that also has an accountability piece in it that I feel is really, really important. And then the other thing that I do is I block time off in my calendar. So I coordinate with, obviously I have clients scheduled throughout the day, but I'm also time blocking things like new business development, time to organize operations for my family, house stuff, things that perhaps my husband wants me to do, or stuff for the boys. So if you look at my calendar, it will look quite full, but it's organized in a way that then gives me the space to breathe and know, okay, I'm clear on what I'm going to get done. The other thing is I do not create to-do lists. I think they cause a ton of stress, but what I do create is the one thing that I want to make movement on that is going to move me closer to my bigger goals. So I can look at every day and say, okay, great, that's my focus for today. And it's one thing. It doesn't mean I'm not getting to little things, but I'm honed in and focused on that one piece. So at the end of the day, I can look back and go, right, I completed that and closed an energy loop. So I'm not leaking energy on to the next day. So those are some of my trips. Yeah.
Oh, they're great. And you know what? I think you hit on something really important, because I think a lot of people, when they want to start a business of their own, they're trying to take more control of their time and have more flexibility. And I think that's what leads to this, not wanting to get onto a schedule and not wanting to block things out, because they're like, yeah, but I'm my own boss. But I mean, the bottom line is that, you got two choices. You can either go work for a company and they'll give you the structure, or you can be broke unless you create a structure in your own company, right?
That's right.
It's going to have to happen. But I think the way that I sort of like flip it around in my head, and I'm sure you do too, is that at least I get to choose how my day is structured. If I find that I work better in the evenings, great. Put a block in the evening. You say you want to be able to be there for your boys in the afternoon. You can do that.
Yes.
So maybe that's where the freedom comes from, right?
Yeah, I think 100%. And you're still creating structure. And I think if anything, like I tend to, I put on all my holidays between now and the next 6 months so that I know, and then my team can plan around it. But I love that, because then I know, oh, right, I have the first 2 weeks of January off because that's when the boys are off. So we can plan something then. So I find it actually creates the flexibility, because I've got visibility into what I'm doing. I'm not just flying blindly. So I would say for anyone who's starting a business, embrace structure that works for you. There's no right answer to it. But, and then the other thing, I guess, as you're saying this, is I I do keep a similar routine. I get up around the same time in the morning. I have some things that are very routine based in the morning, and I do think that's important. I think it gives us a sense of consistency, which for all of us as human beings, I don't find consistency comes very easy, but having that consistency, I think also is another really important tool in your success kit if you're wanting to build your own business. It takes time and energy.
Yeah, I think we want to resist it because we sort of have this idea of what freedom is, but as human beings, we all need routines. We're creatures of habit.
That's right.
We just do. So if you don't set that routine, then you're just going to create some random routine that is not going to get you where you need to go,
Yeah, exactly. And I found one of the things that I've really struggled with, and I still struggle with it, is we were just on holiday for a couple of weeks up in the Northwest where I'm from. And, I marked an entire week off where I wasn't working, really wasn't checking email. We were fairly remote, and reminding myself that I don't need to work on those days because I've marked it off. But by having the structure in place, it actually does make it easier to then take that time off. If you don't have any structure, which I didn't for a time there when I was building my business, I noticed then if I did decide to take an afternoon off, I wasn't really present and couldn't really enjoy it. So it was like, oh, I think I should be over here reaching out to potential clients and trying to build business because I didn't have that routine and structure in place. So that structure is actually the very thing that will give you the freedom that I think people are desiring.
Couldn't say it any better. So now,
check.
Yep, check. So now when it comes to practicing and getting good at what it is that you do, I used to say practice makes perfect, but now I say practice makes progress. So
yes, I love that.
So what about you? Like, how do you, get good at what it is you do?
I practice over and over and over. So I'm, one of my mentors, Rich Litvin, who's a phenomenal coach, years ago, I just remember he said something that really stood out to me. He said, a client is never created outside of a conversation. And I was like, wow, damn, that's insightful. So in other words, get into conversation. And so coaching, and first of all, I want to preface this with, that doesn't mean I'm coaching my friends or my husband. That definitely does not go well when I just jump into that. But when I have someone's permission to coach them, I get a lot of practice. And so I'm in conversation a lot. So even at the point in my business where I have a really full business, I am really curious about the people I'm meeting and reaching out to people and getting into conversation. So that is one way. Another way, it goes back to one of the masterminds I'm in. One of the things that they do, which is still really edgy and scary, is that you coach someone, you submit the recording, and then I'm getting feedback in front of the group on that coaching. And then I also get feedback in real time as I'm coaching someone. So I have really looked for opportunities where I can place myself in a position to get a ton of feedback on my level of coaching. And one, it's transformed my relationship to feedback. I still find it uncomfortable, but it's gotten easier, but it has allowed me to go deeper with my coaching skills. But it's really comes down to the practice of putting yourself in uncomfortable positions to receive that. And then at the same time, practice. I have certainly found this. I joke with friends of mine who are in this business, when can I sort of just sit back and like totally relax? And I don't know if that really ever happens when you're an entrepreneur. There's always an opportunity to be reinventing and creating, but also working on your skills. I mean, it's not like I get to this level and I'm like, okay, I've got it all. Even just 2 days ago, one of my coaches gave me some feedback and it was very useful. She made a really good point. So I would say, run towards opportunities where you can get feedback on your skill versus trying to pretend that you've got it all figured out.
Wow, that's really good. And I imagine really uncomfortable too.
Really uncomfortable. I mean, I certainly have ended up in tears at times. And I preface all of this with saying, then I will go get feedback from my husband and my kids. And you think I had no training in receiving feedback. So, do as I say, not as I do. But yeah.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things that, you never really get comfortable with being told what you're doing wrong, but as you said, I mean, you do learn. I mean, that's how else are you going to learn if you don't get someone else to, audit what you're doing, right?
And I think that also, I was having a conversation with someone recently, an executive, and she's got an amazing job, making 7 figures, fairly cush. And, I said, well, what's the real problem? And she said, I'm just not learning. And so as you were saying that, it got me thinking, I think that also speaks to knowing your values. One of my values is I have to be learning. If I'm not learning, the minute I start to feel bored, I just am not motivated. And so I guess I make it a bit of a game to improve my coaching skills. One, I want to always be showing up as best as I possibly can in service to my clients. But it is a fun game to play of like, ooh, how would I have done that? It's like a chess game. I could have said it that way. What if I'd asked that question? And so I just love being in the game of learning. But for me, that's one of my core values.
And I'm going to just make a prediction that just about every entrepreneur is probably at that point where they're like, I love to learn. I love to keep moving forward.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
Because I mean,
exactly.
I mean, otherwise, why did they decide to leave a cushy job?
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
So, I mean, I mean, I love what your advice is there. Cause I mean, if you could find ways to be audited on the things that you do, then you will definitely be able to take a look at a deeper look at what you're doing. Right.
100%. And that can be, I remember when I was, and I still do this, I'll still get on the phone with a friend who's a colleague or a coach and say, hey, I've got a half an hour here. Let's coach each other and just see what comes of it. And, see if there's anything there, feedback or brainstorm questions on a situation. And so, but all of that requires, and I'll just speak for myself here, but it requires a sense of showing up and being honest. Hey, I don't have all the answers. I don't totally know what to do here. And so there's a level of vulnerability that requires. And I think if you are particularly an entrepreneur, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable because change happens outside of your comfort level is one of the biggest pieces I would say to embrace. I coach a lot of entrepreneurs and I say, look, at the end of the day, I want you rating yourself. How uncomfortable were you today? And if you tell me you're a 2 out of 10, you're not stretching yourself. I want you being a 9 or a 10 out of 10 because I know that's where the magic will happen.
Love it. Okay, it's time for your guest solo.
Yes.
So tell me about what's going exciting in your business.
Yeah. So, all right. So one of the things I do is I coach people one-on-one. I coach groups at a corporate level, but I also curate groups. And so this year we saw an opportunity to support people who either are new to developing their leadership or who want a quick crash course. And what I find, my people are often people who are saying things like, I wish there was more time in the day. I'm exhausted. I'm overwhelmed. I get stuck making decisions. And so I created a program called the Circuit Board. And so it's a 6-week consecutive course. It's 75 minutes and I love it. I just ran my first one and we get together on Zoom and I teach 6 different distinctions. So there is a teaching element in the first 10, 15 minutes. And then I open it up and I coach people in real time. And what I love about that is it allows people to practice their leadership and experience their leadership in real time. It's not just listening to me talk. And so people walk away with not just insights, but the physical experience of putting those insights into motion. So everything from, taking a look at how they're making decisions, how they're leaking energy, identifying their survival mechanisms, making sure they've got a clear vision that coincides with their strategy, and what kind of structure do they have in place. So a lot of the things that you and I were talking about. And the circuit board, the whole focus of it is really to reconnect you to your most potent version inside yourself so that you can show up and make an impact. So the circuit board is starting in October. Again, like I said, it's 6 weeks. We have made this program super turnkey. The investment is $1,000, which is still can be a lot of money for people. It happens to be the lowest entry point for working with me. And I will preface that if there is someone who's interested and that financially is a stretch, please still reach out to me. We are certainly will take a look at that, but we are, for all of your listeners, offering a discount code for $75 off.
Yay!
Which will be in the show notes. And I just cannot recommend this program enough. You know, I just had my first group go through it, and we did a survey afterwards so that I could get some feedback, which I was kind of nervous about. And we got really great feedback on the timing, the facilitating, the connections that people made in the group, and just also the practical tools that they got from it. And what's cool about it is it can be men and women. It's people from all different industries. And it's not overwhelming per se, but people walked away with insights that they then were able to put into practice around their leadership. So lots of information on my website about it, Tim's, that people can go to. And of course, you'll have it all in the show notes. But yeah, super, super excited about it.
Awesome. Awesome. So what is that website then? So
the website is Sarah Gibbons, SarahGibbons.co, not .com. And you can see all of my board programs. That one in particular is called the Circuit Board.
Awesome. Awesome. And make sure you visit the show notes to get the promo code, right?
Yes. The promo code is, I believe it's the Circuit Board.
That's right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for rocking out with me today, Sarah. This has been a lot of fun.
You are welcome. And thank you for having me.
Awesome. And to the listeners, make sure you subscribe, rate, and comment, and we'll see you next time on the Work at Home Rockstar podcast.